been very under the weather.
Sorry.
Brad has been very under the weather.
Thank you, Thea.
For the
And
is iPhone, is that Marcus Bruns?
it is.
Okay, thank you.
You need me to change that?
Nope, just recording attendance. Thank you.
Okay. Then we're going to talk about the website and some of our technology shortcomings. Jen did want to discuss some e-news. Then Gail will be discussing the letter for the OLCC for Old Nicks. And then Thea has an update about the park ambassadors. So Claire, did you want to start off?
It looks like Gail has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I just was going to make a comment. If we do not have a moderator for this evening's discussion between you and Den, I would like to suggest, in fact, I'd like to propose that in the absence of a moderator, we table that until another time, because an unmoderated discussion just has great potential to go off the rails.
Agree.
Do I get a second?
I think we can keep that civil.
Hold on, Arnaud is, we could ask Arnaud if he wants to.
I believe
Well-
the agreed upon moderator was Brad, and he is ill. I did see a second from Margaret, and I did bring a question for a vote. If you don't agree, you don't have to vote for it, but that's
There's
my
no agreed
suggestion.
upon moderator. There's a suggested moderator. There's no agreed upon moderator.
Did
My point stands.
so did Dennis, you want to request another moderator?
Well, I'm not sure we need a moderator. I mean, you and I have a few issues to discuss that are organizational. I don't think they're personal. They don't need to be made personal.
I personally agree that we do need a moderator, but
I've made a motion and Margaret has seconded it. I think we should vote on this.
I do too.
What is your motion?
My motion was to table the conflict resolution conversation until a future time when we can have an established moderator present.
Sounds like you're afraid of the discussion.
I don't think you should make ad hominem attacks. This is exactly the sort of thing that is inappropriate and would be moderated by a moderator. Therefore, I would like to call for a vote. All those in favor of tabling this conversation until we can have a moderator, please raise your hand.
And just give me a second. All those against? Okay, so the discussion's going to be tabled until we get a moderator. Thank you, Gail.
I would like to add something to the agenda.
Is it okay, Dennis, if we let the public speak first? Because that's what Stephen had something to say. And then we'll go to that.
Well, I don't want to talk about it now. I just want to add it to the agenda at some
okay.
point in the evening, and it has to do with the ad hoc charter revision committee. So I just want maybe 5 minutes to discuss that.
Okay, and that could be at the end where Thea's finished. Actually, Margaret, is it okay if Stephen goes first? Stephen?
Sorry, I have a new computer, so I'm figuring it out. Just and I don't mind that Stephen speaks, and I think he always has great things to say. But this is a business meeting. It's not a general meeting, so there is no public discussion before we talk about business. Although I'm happy to hear what he has to say, I just wanted to point it out.
I did put time on the agenda for public comment, though.
Okay, just for future reference, so you know this is a business meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
My comment is completely business related. Many months ago, the board approved a budget for the history project contract with Dr. David Lewis. I reported earlier in the summer that he was delayed because he was very busy. He was delayed starting. I've been staying in touch with him, getting guidance on research I've been doing. And I got a message from him today saying, "There's good news. I'm closing out my summer projects now and expect to be able to start on this soon." I've spoken with archival staff and in the past, and they seem to be excited to work with me on this and are expecting me to start soon. I recognize we are late starting, but I think now everything is ready and people in archives are on board. So I will get something back to you very soon. So what I'm waiting for back from him is his signature on the contract agreement, which will then trigger the initial payment from the approved funds of 1,575. And that may help with cash flow planning, which I think is a business matter. And then there will be a balance on the contract payable to him. And then there's 425 reserved to possible expenses from archival places like Lane County History Museum for access and things like that. The funding that was approved was $3,000. I want to make sure that doesn't get lost in shuffling funds. That's an update from me. The project is alive and is about to start, and we're now being able to get a handle on cash flow. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Stephen. And then to Claire.
I would like to find where I am in the agenda. I would love to motion to approve the 9:21:22 minutes. Can I get a second on that?
I'd like to ask you, could I ask you to forward the amended minutes? Because you did amend those minutes, I believe. And I don't recall seeing a forwarded version of those amended minutes.
Sure, I can do that. But just as a reminder to everybody, my minutes are not verbatim. I like to point folks to the recordings that we have available. And eventually I would love to have the minutes available on our website. But I can forward those minutes from last time, just with the caveat that they're not word for word and yeah.
But my point is that if you want to vote on finalizing those minutes and they have been revised since you first forwarded them to the board, then it's inappropriate to vote on passing those minutes because the board hasn't seen the revised minutes.
Just another thing to point out is I feel like recently there's been back and forths due to, you know, I'm not going to get into it. Sure. So is there no second for this?
Oh, Jen's seconding.
I second it.
Okay, Jen second.
Yes. I also like to have everybody mute their said cells so that we don't have people jumping out of turn. Please.
Margaret, you had something?
Any other questions or should we vote?
He does have a point about voting on minutes that we haven't seen.
I'm happy to wait and table this until I can send out the revised minutes. I will say the revisions that I receive via email are not always exactly what the recording says, which is why I like to point people back to the recording, which is the best way to know what was said and what was not said. So if you do have a revision, I do ask that you personally go back to the recording and triple check that it is exactly what was said.
Could I ask a question real quick? Because I seem to remember reading the revisions when people sent them back to you. So we did get them, is that right?
Yeah,
I absolutely saw all the revisions.
Right. So okay. Well then.
I think maybe the question was wanting the revisions in their entirety with the rest of the notes. Is that what it was, Den?
If you've revised the minutes since you passed out the first copy, which was about 10 days back or 2 weeks ago, if you revised them since then and you haven't forwarded that revised version to the board, then we can't very well vote on minutes that we haven't actually seen.
That's fine. It really doesn't make any difference to me. I'm fine with tabling this motion and then forwarding the new minutes with all of the revisions And then we can vote on it at our next board meeting. Does that sound good to folks? Okay, so then I'd like to, do I have to start a new motion to do that, or can we just say we're gonna table
No.
it and then move on?
You just table it.
Table it.
Awesome.
All righty. So next thing is, there's been a lot of back and forth about the current charter and what we can and cannot do. I kind of wanted to talk to everybody and kind of get on the same page because it seems like there's a lot of misunderstandings. One thing is that I was a little confused a couple of times when we were in our general meeting and Dennis, he kept saying we didn't have a quorum. One thing that I think everybody needs to remember is that, yes, we are board members, but we are still considered part of membership. So just because we have a large board, if we have 10 members, including the board, that is still considered part of it.
That is not correct, Dilenia.
We take turns, raise our hands, and are called on in these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. So just keep that in mind, that it is the board, but we are also considered part of membership. And because it is not clear in the current charter, that is the way it's read. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, it actually is clear in the current charter, and in a moment I'll pull the charter out and I can tell you the exact article and section. But it says that a quorum for a membership meeting, a general membership meeting, is a quorum of board members, no less than 3, and 10 community members. That's a quorum for a general membership meeting, as it states it very clearly in the charter.
What article?
I'll pull it up.
Mhm.
I can pull it up, please.
Please
No,
do,
let
Jen.
him. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, Jen may have it right there.
May I proceed, Dilenia?
Go ahead.
It's in Article 11, and it's Section 5. A quorum for the conducting of business at, general meeting. Sorry about that. It's another place. Give me 1 second. That's for a general meeting. So forgive me. Let me give me a moment.
That's what we're talking about.
We're discussing a general meeting, aren't we?
Yes, we're talking about the general meeting, Jen.
Excuse me. So it's Article 11, Section 5. A quorum for the conducting of business at a general meeting shall be 10 members.
Which we are all members. And if you look under membership, which is Article 4, it states clearly the general membership is open to anyone who lives, works, or owns property within the boundaries. So again, we are all considered members. We are a large board. That's why they make a large board. But at least 3 of us have to show up for the meeting. This was cleared with the attorney. That's exactly what it means. We are all members and we are board members. One does not exclude the other. So
Okay, that's a reasonable interpretation.
the next thing I wanted to discuss was there was also questions about how long a board meeting has to go. In our discussions, it really doesn't state how long it just states that they can only be up to 2 hours. With so many of us doing different subcommittees, I think it's fair to say that I'm trying to keep it as short, sweet, let's get down to business and finish business. Is there any questions about that? Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Is Gail or is that Margaret?
Well, I have my hand up and so does Margaret. So who would you like to hear from first?
You please, because I think I saw yours first, and then Margaret.
Thank you. Um, my question around the length of time was not around the letter of the charter as to whether or not a meeting must be 2 hours. My concern is that the length of the meeting, along with quite a few other changes that have happened in the functioning and running of the board, seem to have happened without any discussion with the at-large board members, at least. Perhaps these conversations are going on in the executive board, but we're not being made privy to them. And it just seems polite if you're going to make such an enormous shift, for example, shortening board meetings from 2 hours to an hour, eliminating board meetings. It feels disrespectful to leave us out of that conversation. We care very much about this neighborhood, and we have committed to be involved. Do I like going home and getting off the Zoom after an hour? Sure, I do, but I feel like there's so much work we're not getting done because we don't have time to talk to one another. The last meeting felt so rushed. I was like, why did I even show up to this? Because it felt like there wasn't time to get into anything, and there was not enough substance to the meeting to make it make sense. What's the old adage? Couldn't this have been an email? But I don't want the Whiteaker Community Council to be an email. I want our board meetings, especially now when we can't be together and have that sense of community by meeting in the same place, they need to have substance. So I'm not saying you don't have the right to set the board meeting any length of time you want, from 5 minutes to no more than 2 hours. My point is that you just keep deciding to do things. And yes, they're allowed under the charter, but they feel abrupt and they feel like big changes, and they feel like they're just happening without any opportunity for the rest of us to have any input. So if this is something that the executive board has talked about, I'd love to hear from other people on the executive board. I notice we don't seem to have a vice chair any longer because I haven't seen that person at our meeting for a really long time. And I'm very concerned because I feel like we're falling apart in some places that are important, like making sure that we have a full executive board, making sure, do we even have a vice chair right now? I haven't seen Dennis in months. Making sure that we are all on the same page when it comes down to setting agendas and setting the links of meetings. If you don't have a 2 hours worth of meeting stuff, maybe a quick email that says, hey, does anybody have anything extra we need to talk about this week? Because I only have an hour's worth of stuff, but we could have more time if there are more things that need to be discussed. But those conversations aren't happening, and I find that very disappointing. I'm sorry, you're right. I mean Daniel, not Dennis. See, it's been so long since I've seen Daniel that I didn't even remember his name, and that's very sad. So anyway, I agree that we shouldn't waste time, but I also feel like we're not having important conversations about these changes. And regardless of what the letter of the charter is, our practice ever since I joined the board almost 2 years ago has been 2-hour meetings. And then all of a sudden, they weren't anymore, and we didn't talk about it, and that bugs me. All right, I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Gail. I just wanted to kind of speak on that a little bit. Like I said, there's quite a few of us who are sitting on other committees, to include yourself. I keep it short and sweet, and I wait until, like, if you have something that you want put on the agenda, then I feel that it's the board member's responsibility to email me at least a couple, the month before, and say, hey, I need this on the agenda. But as far as time, yeah, I'm not here to waste anybody's time. I understand everybody wants to, talk, but for me, it's more not a disrespect thing, but yeah, if you want to put something on the agenda, absolutely. Margaret, you patiently were waiting. Can you go ahead?
So, I pretty much agree with everything that Gail said, and I want to add, I've been involved with the board for 4 years, and we've never, our meetings have always been from 7 to 9. It's just a given. And if they're going to be shorter, it's not a matter of, she's correct. We're not talking about anything. this is the first time in all of the time that I have been involved with the board that we don't make decisions together as a board. And that we don't talk about things that are happening. And where is our vice chair? I mean, do we have one? That's
I can actually answer that question. He's been really ill, is what I was told. And right at the moment, he is on vacation until the 30th.
So he's ill, but on vacation.
That was, well, I should say, when I heard from him, he is on vacation.
Okay, so.
And that he'll be back on the 30th.
So he is gonna rejoin the meetings on next month.
I cannot say that for sure, but you know, we can definitely find out.
It would be
I
nice
like
to know
to-
where that is. But
Yeah.
I again would like to go back to Gail's point about the fact that, you know, we don't always agree on everything, and we don't. That's what makes us so unique, is it's the fact that we all have very different opinions, and people on the board are from very different walks of life and different spectrums. But you know what? We have always discussed any decisions that were going to be made about how long a meeting is going to be. I mean, you're saying that you want to know a month in advance before something gets put on the agenda. Well, we
No,
don't get-
that would be optimal. If
Oh,
I can
that's
get,
what-
if I
that's,
can
you know,
get
that's-
3 days, that would be even better.
Okay, see, that's a lot different than a month.
Yeah.
Because
like-
we do live in a community that things change on a day-to-day basis, and we don't get you know, we don't get a month in advance at what the agenda will be. And I have to say, you've been doing a good job at working on at least getting us the agenda before the meeting, which is nice, and that's a great change because that didn't happen before. But I mean, Dilenia, really, things do feel like they're falling apart. And we have always been a team before. Everyone has an equal voice. I know that you've heard that a million times.
Mhm.
We all are equal under the roof.
And again, that's why I also expect people, if they have things to discuss, that is their responsibility to email me with those discussions.
Sure,
that
and
makes
well,
sense?
we're
So we could put
discussing
those on
something
there.
right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
But
and it's,
I'm also not going to fluff a meeting with items that, you know, aren't there, I guess is my
well,
point.
this item is important to
Yeah.
many of us. I mean, I know that Gail and I are not the only ones.
Got it.
And, you know, we
So then make sure to give
We
me
wanna
some items for the agenda.
well, we want to feel more like a team.
Gotcha.
That's all.
I did get that.
Okay,
Dennis, I
thank you.
believe you had your hand up next.
I just wanted to mention that Dan has missed quite a few board meetings now, and after the third meeting, he's no longer active as a board member, so he isn't the vice chair. We don't have an acting vice chair, and he's inactive for terms of quorum and voting
Correct.
and discussion as per the charter. So, yeah, not sure what to do about that.
That is
I
not
think-
correct.
Yeah, that is incorrect. He is
Oh,
eligible
Yeah.
to be removed, but that
No,
would
no.
take a board vote.
no, he is ineligible after missing
Please
three
read the
consecutive.
charter. It's
board-
very clear. After
No,
3
you-
Jen,
meetings, a person may be removed from the board, but that does require a vote. Anything that says may requires a vote.
Let me read that.
Jen, would you read it? Go ahead.
Well, let me find it.
I think Jen has it, right?
Give me a moment. What did I just do?
Stephen, do you have your hand up?
So here we go. It's in Article 9, Section 2, and it says members of the board who miss 3 consecutive board meetings shall be declared inactive for purposes of voting or establishing a quorum. So Gail, I am right about that.
It's not the same. Inactive is not the
Article
same
9,
thing as
Section
removed.
2.
Inactive is not the same as removed. Inactive, he certainly is. He's not here being active, but that's not the same as removed. There is actually nothing in our charter that
He's not
ever
removed. Listen,
provides
he's
for
not
removal.
removed.
He is
He's
still
inactive.
on the board. He's just currently inactive. He could
That's-
become
I don't-
reactivated by returning to a board meeting.
Okay,
I
and
don't
Gail's
recall using
correct.
the word removed.
Gail's correct. He is not gone from the board. He is just inactive. He can't vote.
And then Dennis, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, I didn't say he was removed. I said he was inactive for purposes of quorum and voting.
Okay.
All right, Gail?
And then just so we're all clear also, just because this has been also brought up.
I'm sorry, Dilenia. I
Go
just
ahead.
want to point out, Dan, what you said was he was no longer our vice chair, and that is not true.
You-
He did
You're,
say that.
you're muted, Dan. All right, so it doesn't matter. He's inactive at the moment. That's what we know. And he cannot vote. And then also, just to let you guys know, and this was checked with the attorney, because our charter and our bylaws does not have a removal process, then we move to actually Oregon law. So there is an Oregon law of how to remove a board member. Just to briefly say it, and you guys can look it up yourselves, but you would call a special meeting, let everybody on the board know, let the public know that there is a special meeting, and all you need is whoever goes to that meeting to vote. So please, if you want to, vote me out. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there is a form of removing a board member. Just because our charter doesn't say it, then we go to Oregon law. Is there any question there? Go ahead, Dennis.
It's ORS 65, if you'd like to look it up.
I know.
And in the new charter, I wrote the,
We're not going to discuss the new charter. Dang it. I clicked on your picture. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying that portion, ORS 65, is explained very clearly in the new charter in one of the articles. So it's
Thank you.
there.
All righty. And then let me just, let's see. I think really that was all I wanted to go through on those. Committees. That's the other piece. There seems to be a little bit of confusion on what an ad hoc committee. An ad hoc committee is specifically so we can go ahead and put somebody, like let's say we have the website ad hoc committee. They're basically going to be a committee until the website's completed, which, you know, good luck you guys, because I feel like that's forever. But once that specific project is completed, then the ad hoc committee goes away. I, as a chair, can actually appoint special committees, which I believe, Jen, you wanted to talk about e-news and starting a committee, but we'll discuss that. Is there any question on that? Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I would like to draw the board's attention to the charter, Article 10, where it discusses board committees, and I'd like to read sections 1 and 2. Standing committees and ad hoc committees of the Whiteaker Community Council Board consist of board members volunteering to serve on those committees. And WCC members, which is community members, appointed by the board. So this obviously says that any WCC board member who volunteers to serve on an ad hoc committee is on that committee, and no vote of the board is required. Section 2 then goes on to say that council members, board members serving on committees may vote on all matters coming before the committee for review and action.
Can I just add something, please? At the
Sure.
moment, the charter, the ad hoc for the charter revision is on hold So it's on hold. So there's no ad hoc committee to work with right now. Until we get a
Well,
reaction,
okay.
until we get a response from OPSI.
So
Excuse me.
let me just clarify.
Hmm.
What Gail had, I'm going to reiterate what Gail had told us last week, which is there was a little confusion. When Ian sent those, they were for both attorneys to review it and just give their comments. That's it. They were supposed to send it back to us. And as far as the ad hoc committee, that is Jen and myself have been on the ad hoc committee for the charter. Once that is completed, then it goes to the board for their comments and reviews. It went to the board and once, but then we needed to pull it back for other reasons, technical issues. And then once it goes to the board and then we get their comments, and then it'll go into discussion, and then it goes into a vote from the board, then it goes to general membership. And then once it passes general membership, then it goes over to the back to the city. Go ahead, Dennis.
The charter that we currently operate under doesn't actually say that only you and Jen get to be the ad hoc committee.
No,
It
that
says
was
that-
voted on.
No,
when-
no vote is required. Excuse me. The charter says that any board member who volunteers to be on an ad hoc committee, it's right there in black and white, is on that committee.
And the
And I
committee is on
volunteered to
hold.
be on the committee.
And the
Well, that's
committee
fine,
is
but
on hold.
what I'm saying is that the moment you guys start up again, you need to include me because I volunteered now twice to be on the committee. And I have to say, I know more about the charter than anyone. And it would seem logical for you to.
Why didn't your charter go through the last time?
Excuse me?
I'm curious why the charter that you worked on and that you finished didn't go through.
It did. It was voted on by the membership and
No,
approved.
why isn't it our charter now?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure why. And I think it's because the WCC board didn't follow through with it. It was voted on by the membership. I can pull the minutes and show you that. So it's a good question, but to this point of the ad hoc. committee for
Were you
the
not
charter,
on the board when it was?
I was the treasurer of the board at the time.
I guess I'm
I was the
confused.
treasurer
You
of
were
the
the treasurer, but why didn't the city say yes to it? Go ahead, Margaret.
I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I think I retired just after that, so I'm not sure what became of it, but
Oh, I
that
got you.
charter version was passed by the membership, so I'll send you those.
So just a quick question. Because we're talking about the charter now, we're talking about present, not the past.
Yeah.
And I understand that the ad hoc committee is on hold because of the fact that we've sent it to the attorneys. So if I'm not mistaken, at this point, when it comes back, there will not really be an ad hoc committee because it will be the entire board that goes over whatever recommendations were made by the lawyer, not just the committee. Is that correct? Dilenia, you're on mute, but my understanding is once we sent it, then
Yeah.
it comes back and it comes in front of this is something, Dennis, that we decided before this board was elected.
But that's not the way
And
it
I
works.
understand what you mean about
Mhm.
anybody volunteering for a board seat, and you're right. And not only do board members get a vote, but if you live, work, or own property in the Whiteaker and you are on a committee, you also have a right to vote,
Mhm.
which it does
you need to
say
be
in our
appointed.
current, it says in our current charter. And
Yes,
I
but you would need to be
understand that. I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is that what we said is once we sent it to the attorneys and they would go over it, then it would come back to the entire board, not just two people. Is that correct? Is that how everyone remembers it?
But
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's correct. And the board will take a vote on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing is that I would say that Jen and I would just clear up, because I think I saw some misspellings and a couple of little things,
Some
but yeah,
grammatical errors, but as far
Yeah.
as the content,
the
at
content
this
itself.
point, now the whole board is the committee.
Hmm.
There is, the ad hoc
Yes.
committee is done. It's the whole board.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, because that's my understanding. But he is absolutely right. Anyone can volunteer for a committee. But and Dan and I will just point out that you're the one that made the motion at the last meeting to be put on that committee.
thank you.
Correct.
You could have just said, I want to volunteer for that committee, and according to the minute or according to our bylaws, then you would have been on it. But
Yeah, I'm
it
saying
was
that
the
now.
same then.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
I
that
know.
now.
But it was the same then as it is now, and it
Yeah.
does come back to the entire board. Again, we are a team and we all need to work together.
Agreed, but
Dennis?
let me comment on this, please.
Go
Let me
ahead.
comment on this. The charter, the new charter was sent to the city attorney for the sole purpose of determining whether it violated any local, federal, or state laws. Likewise, the new charter was sent to Cordelia to read it over and determine if it violated any nonprofit statutes. And so both of those entities passed on it, meaning that it didn't violate any laws, but they didn't approve it in its entirety by saying that, for instance, putting all of the bank accounts in a certain person's name was the right thing to do, or
Dennis?
disenfranchising everyone
Dennis,
who
actually,
works.
you're mistaken about that.
Oh, go
Our
ahead.
attorney did clear that. And that is the way business is done now. The
Do you have
treasurer,
We
Yeah.
Do you
have
have
to
an
vote on
email?
that as a board, though.
I
Do you have
believe
an
we
email
did.
from the
No, I
attorney?
would have never voted to agree to that.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Do you
I'll
have an
send you,
email, Dilenia?
I do have an email for it.
I'd love to see that if you would.
Yeah. What was the other piece? Yeah, I'll send you guys the email. Hold on. And then,
And Gail has had her hand up for a while.
I'm sorry, Gail. Dennis and Jen, can you put your hands
Oh, I'm
down?
sorry, my hand is up.
Go ahead, Gail.
Shouldn't be. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify once again. We have hired and retained our attorney to do more than just go through and tell us what's illegal, but also to go through and tell us what's good, what works, what's a great idea, what's a terrible idea. She is, in fact, a bit of a consultant for us at this point because we have her on retainer. And that is what we asked her to do when we asked her to look over our charter. She was provided a copy of our current charter and also a copy of our proposed new charter that was developed by the ad hoc committee. The reason that we sent it to her before we sent it to the whole board is because we figured she'd have a better opportunity to go through with a knowledge of the law and our responsibilities and rights and all of those things under both our neighborhood association delineation and also as a 503c charity. So I'm sorry, a nonprofit. So that is what we requested of her, and she has not yet returned that document to us. So we still don't have that feedback from her. We also sent it to the city attorney and thank you, 501c3. I always get that wrong. We also sent it to the city attorney, and we don't really know what sort of feedback they would give us because they're the city attorney. They don't work for us, they work for the city. So maybe they would just look at it and see whether it was illegal or not. Maybe they would look at it and see if it was functional or not. We really don't know. We were hoping for the best and hoping we would get some good feedback. But in neither of those cases was there any attempt to get them to approve or sign off on or give us support on either of those documents. The hope was that we would
Yeah.
receive guidance and counsel, good counsel, so that we could then decide whether or not this version of the charter, which we have developed thus far through the ad hoc committee, is a good one and one we should move forward with. If we receive information that any of the things in it are inappropriate or problematic, we will have to reconvene the ad hoc committee and we will need to rework through the problems that are in the charter if there are problems that need working through. Den is of the opinion that there are problems that need working through, and he's perfectly within his right to have that opinion. Putting himself forward as the be-all, end-all expert on charters, and our charter in particular, feels to me a little precious, especially since so many of us have worked on it for so long in his absence. So I would like to ask Den to please show a little respect to all the effort that has gone into this over the last year while he was doing other things. Recognize that we are all adults, we are all professionals, we are all volunteers, and we are all doing our damnedest to get things done for the benefit of our community. That's why I'm on the board. I think that's why we're all on the board. That's why I'm missing the Trailblazers opening game tonight so that I can be here talking to you people about a charter that is not even a thing we can talk about yet because we have not received it back from the people who are supposed to be telling us what to do with it. So I'm tired of talking about this. I think we need to table it until we have something we can actually do something about. And I really wish we would stop trying to pick each other apart and start to work together as a team. I'm here to be a team player. I'm here to make our neighborhood better. And I'm tired of arguing. That's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Dennis, I'm going to move on to one last piece on this charter.
Yes.
So on Article 8 under officers, in section 2. Jen, you want to read it for me real quick?
Yes.
Sorry, I
Section
don't have my
2.
glasses on.
Okay, Section 2, Chair, it shall be the function of the chair to call meetings, ensure the agendas are planned and meetings are chaired, and generally oversee the activities of the community council. She may appoint people to represent the council before any public agency and appoint special committees. The chair shall be the primary contact person and liaison with the city of Eugene, except that at the chair's request, another board member may be appointed by the board to serve in one or both of these roles.
Now, I think we all know that what that means. Dennis, please put your hand down. Let me finish what I'm saying. Okay. I need you to take off WCC board. You are not the WCC board. You're using that on your line. If you want to put WCC board member, that's okay. When you're doing official business for the board.
Reasonable.
Anything else, personal, anything else, please do not use that. I have chimed. I do delegate things to other people. Thea, she talks to the city. Derek is going to be doing an interview for us. Jen is also someone who talks to the city. And Gail is also somebody else who talks to the city. Please stop using the WCC because my perception of it is that it's for personal gain. And I am trying to protect this organization, please.
Well, as am I. I'm sorry, we're at loggerheads over that. I agree with your point that it could be misinterpreted. If I sign my name and then say WCC board, it might imply that I speak for the entire board. I should put WCC member. But I'd like to point out that the passage that Jen just read from the charter says that the chair will be the primary contact with the city. It doesn't say she will be the only contact with the city. And
you do not speak for us. You were not elected to speak for us. We elected a chair to speak for us, Den, and at no point did we vote to have you speak for us. If you want to sign things saying you're a member of something, that's your right. But you have been signing in a way that implies that you are speaking for the board, and we don't like it. Please stop.
I thought we were speaking in turn, Gail, and raising our hands, remember?
Yeah, you know what? You're under my skin, Den, because you insist on being precious about these issues and you know what the problems are. You either understand the way that meetings are run and you understand how to be professional in an organization or you don't. You want to be professional when it benefits you and you want to be I don't know what else. You want to be free form when it benefits you, and you want to hold each of us to rules when there are rules, but you don't follow rules. You don't mute between people talking. You speak over people. You feel like your voice is the most important one in the room, and honestly, I'm tired of it. You need to take your turn, and you need to accept when somebody says to you you're overstepping, and say thank you for the input. I will stop overstepping. You're right. I don't want to sound like I'm speaking for the board because you do not speak for the board. Dilenia speaks for the board.
Well, we just straightened that out, Gail. You probably witnessed the conversation between me and
No,
Dilenia.
Dennis, you were just you honestly were just getting ready to say chart something with the charter, okay? We're all sitting here, we're all
I was
adults.
gonna,
I speak for the board. If you're doing WCC board member work, then you put WCC at-large board member. If it
Righto,
has
that's
nothing to
very
do with the
reasonable.
board,
I
please
agree
do
with
not
you.
write to anyone
And
again.
I am
Can you
agreeing,
please mute Dennis for
I
what, for,
am
Then
agreeing, I am agreeing with
He's
Dilenia.
agreeing.
please,
So
please.
everybody, let's just take a step back.
Can I
Thank you,
point out one thing? I'd like to point out one thing to Gail and then I'll be quiet. Gail, if you're so concerned about the community, do you not realize
No, don't do that. Don't do that, Dennis, and I am muting you now.
it disenfranchises everybody?
Just say, just stop yourself. That is the end of that conversation. I believe I saw Margaret first and then Andrew.
I just want to make attention to what Claire wrote in the notes, which I agree with. It says, I think it's also important to note to not represent the board as a member or a whole on any topics that have not been approved by the board. So in other words, any of us, and I've written plenty of things to the city and put Whiteaker Community Council Board or to local businesses, but there are things that we have discussed and approved within the board meetings. Even if I just put board member. So, you know, we can't just voice our opinions and then just send them out there.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I just want to point out, earlier we took a vote to like table some of the contentious, right? Like I understand we're talking about the charter and it's gotten a little hot. I just want to remind everybody that over the objections of some people here, we all agreed that we were going to kind of do the contentious thing later when we can do it the way that most people think is the right way. And so I would just encourage everybody, and I do mean everybody, including myself, to just kind of relax. And we're going to have, I think, a discussion about some of the issues later, but that's what we agreed on. And so just reminding everybody of our motion earlier.
Okay. And I think
Love your hair, Andrew.
yeah.
A married life does you well. I can see you look quite comfortable. We haven't
Derek, I
seen
like your
much
hair
lately.
too. So let's talk about our website and our technology shortcomings. Couple of problems here. So one problem that we're having, and we're getting really close, is that I don't know if anybody else is getting the same message, but our Google Drive is almost at capacity. So we need to start kind of making decisions on what we can keep and what we can't keep. A discussion was taken. I asked our attorney how long we had to keep our minutes for, and basically minutes need to be kept forever. So that's one thing to consider. Dennis had pointed out something, which was how not everyone has. Oh, hold on one second, guys. Let me let Thea back in. I did not. Sorry, Thea. Dennis pointed out that the minutes aren't available for everyone, and to be honest with you, we're kind of having a struggle getting them on the website and things like that. So Dennis, I wanted to know if you wanted to take that project on about getting the minutes sorted and then maybe getting them put on the website for us, or in an order that, you know, in an order that we can actually get it maybe fixed correct. Oh, Claire, you have something?
Thea's hand went up first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I was the archivist for the WCC for many years when I was treasurer. I feel those two things go hand in hand. And what I was doing was I was avoiding putting anything onto the web. I was avoiding the cloud because that can go away in the blink of an eye, and then all of our records are toasted. So I was keeping everything on a hard drive, and I back up my hard drive regularly. So
Oh, you're so old school.
but it's you know, it's bulletproof. You know, there's no way it can go away if there's 2 hard drive copies, and then they can be uploaded from the hard drive to any website for accessibility. And so it guarantees that the WCC's archive it stays in perpetuity, and I think that's important.
Thea, I believe you had your hand up next.
Marcus and I are going to meet about the website and how to get things up there. It'd be awesome if Dennis got them all in order, and we have to add some businesses. There have been some businesses that want to get on there. So on Monday, Dennis and I are going to meet about that. I have to refresh my brain on how to get in there. I've been busy taking care of my mom, but I will do that this weekend.
Is that Claire talking? Who's talking?
That was
It's Thea, Dennis.
Oh,
I have
Thea,
to leave my
okay.
camera off or my
Okay.
computer kicks me off.
And just to let you all know, pretty much all the businesses on the other side of the 105, I'm starting to contact them and letting them know, like, hey, like, you could check Google. You guys are part of the WIT now. I believe, I think it was Claire first.
So I had a conversation with the company that we contracted through to get our minutes onto our website, or just do our website work in general. Basically, they said if we can get them PDFs of the minutes, you know, that we want to put on the website, then they'll do it. So it just needs, you know, a concerted effort of individuals to put minutes into PDFs and put them on the website. Now, in my opinion, we paid money for this business to help us with our website. We might even see if we can extend that to have them make the PDFs themselves. But then that might go into the realm of, like, you know, do we want it to be at this company's discretion of, like, making the PDF? So I don't know. I'm not volunteering to help with that. But I just wanted to note that PDF format is what they requested in order to make that as fast as possible.
Yeah,
And
and I
that's the
believe our
Brent and
note,
Joe Studio.
and I believe our notes, our minutes are in Word right now, right, Claire?
Since I have been secretary, I have taken everything in Google Docs. There is a bit of a rough transition, I think, as most of us know, from, like, the previous secretaries, unfortunately. So I think everything else is under your purview, Dilenia. They're in a Google Doc, and Andrew also has said that you know where they are too, but I don't know.
Jen, I believe you had your hand up. Oh no, wait, Margaret had her hand up first.
Ah, that's not true.
Stop that, Jen.
I would just like to suggest that we purchase more space on Google Drive, because, and I think everything is a good idea. I think having somebody put it together, put it on a hard drive, I think all of that's great and wonderful. But in Google Drive, we all have access to everything. And if we are working on a committee, like you said, lots of people are doing lots of things. There's lots of committee work happening. Sometimes we need to have access to go back and look. We want to reference something. We want to see what happened before, as well as the fact that it's our history, you know, and it's important to keep it all together and available to everyone. So I think these are all great ideas, but I also think that we need to keep the Google Drive alive and well and just buy some more space.
Okay, Jen?
Jen or Dan?
Jen, I'm sorry. Jen.
I'm going back to the files. I'd like to know if there's any possibility of changing the files, manipulating the files, deleting any of the files. And I believe that it's been a long time since I've been in there, but I want to make sure that that situation is not allowed, that those files that are going to be transferred over are exactly as they are now. Because I believe that there was a way of changing things, and I don't know, I really like that to be looked into before we.
I mean,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, but I believe if any file is changed, there is a way that you can find out what the last change and who was the last person to change it. But I'd have to Google that. 'Cause it's been a long time.
Yeah, I would like to look into that before we get started on that, please.
Den was next,
Um,
and then Thea.
The documents on the Google Drive need to be read-only because it's dangerous to have the possibility for anyone to go in and change a document, for instance, to change a minutes. So they need to be read-only. And they need to be stored in such a way that they can be downloaded and they can be used as PDFs, but they cannot be changed in the archive itself. That's very important. And I'm curious, Dilenia, what other information besides our minutes, historical minutes, are in the Google Drive? For instance, other
Jesus.
documents. Is there a whole raft of stuff in there?
Yeah, it's like a good luck hunt, like go hunting
okay.
for what you need to
Okay.
look for.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good news because
No.
it means there's a lot of our archive is there. That's good
Yeah.
news. Yeah.
Gail, I believe, Thea, do you have your hand up?
I do have my hand up.
Okay, can
So-
everybody who didn't want to talk, put their hand down? So I can, okay. thank you. And then Thea, go ahead.
Okay, so because Claire has done things in Google Docs and in Word, those can be converted to a PDF. Once it's in a PDF, it cannot be changed. And then that PDF can be there. Yeah, that's true, Andrew.
I can change
If
them.
you have friends in low places, so you should make it a read-only, as Dennis pointed out, a read-only file so that other cooks don't get in the kitchen and change it. I can take the minutes that have been sent to us from Claire and from previous when I've been on boards, but it will take time to put PDFs and then make a folder if that's what the board wants. Winter is coming. I won't be in my yard.
Okay. And then I believe Claire was next. No? Who was next? Gail?
Well, I just wanted to point out that PDF stands for photographic document format, which means it is a picture of a document that is then uploaded, which makes it much more difficult to change. Not impossible, obviously, but much more difficult. Because Google Docs has an archive of changes, should someone make a change after the documents have been approved, it would show. But as Den pointed out, it is possible once we have voted to approve minutes to then make those documents read-only. That would have to be something that someone would have to actually go in and do then. And I'm going to point out one more time that we are a volunteer organization. So if someone is volunteering to do that, great, let's do that. I think it's best practice. But I do think that photographs put on the website seems pretty bulletproof as far as, malfeasance goes. And also, these are our minutes, so I'm not really sure how much of a risk it is. We're not that important in the grand scheme of things.
And then Margaret was next, I believe.
So I would just like to know if there's someone that could do, before we vote on anything or decide anything, if there's someone that could do a little research to see what it will cost for us to add more Google Drive to get more storage, so we can talk about if we have the money. And then we can vote on if that's something that we want to do.
It's actually a monthly charge is what they're saying it is. Yeah.
So how much is it? I think you can buy more, and I think there's more than one way. You can buy more memory.
I can double check on that, but the piece of it was, hey, you can buy more memory at a monthly charge. But I'll double check on that. I could do that.
That would be great. I would like to know that. And as you all know, I'm pretty busy, so thank you.
I believe Claire now, is that you?
Yes. Okay, 3 things. Hopefully I remember them all. Number 1, since I have been secretary, at least all of the notes on the Google documents are read only. They're view only is what Google Documents calls them. In the past, I've shared like the link, because basically I have two running documents for our notes. I have our general notes, and then I have our board notes. And I'm happy to resend those links back out, but you can scroll back and see everything from the beginning of Claire secretary time. I cannot speak for previous secretaries. I don't know on that point. Second, I think Thea, you might have mentioned, whoever wants to volunteer for this to turn notes into PDFs. I would recommend not taking them from the emails I send out, but from those aforementioned Google documents, because that's where I make the corrections. And as Den pointed out, I didn't know it was practice to then have to like resend all the things out, because I guess I'm living in the future of like, there's a permalink document, but I understand that now. Third, I've never used Word, so we can scratch that out of at least the Secretary Claire record. I haven't used Word since like 2013, because Google Suite is king in my mind. And I think that's it.
The ones I know, when we were looking for those old documents, those were in Word documents and needed to be changed into PDFs and things like that. But those were like the 2016 to 18 that Dennis had requested. I'm not sure. I believe Thea was the last person I saw, the first person after Claire. Thea,
Jen
did
was
you-
before me. Jen was before me.
Jen, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to know if there is room in the budget to increase the Google Docs. Should we always check with our secretary, our treasurer?
Well, let me get a price first, and then we can go from there.
Okay,
Uh,
thank
Go ahead. I mean, Andrew, do
Yeah.
you want to answer that?
I can give you the price. I pulled it up.
Oh, cool.
That's why I raised my hand.
Oh, thank you.
So basic for 100 gigs is $20 a year. For 200 gigs, it's $30 a year. For 2 terabytes
That's cheap.
is $100 a year. And for 5 terabytes, it's $249 a year. And
How many
you can
terabytes?
just put
5?
Google 5 terabytes.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was the Whiteaker Community Council, right? We're a legit nonprofit. That's super cool. We have some money. Like I think, a couple $100 a year, like we spend more than that on our attorney every time she does our board training. Right. Like I'm not saying be profligate with our money, but like we do have money, right? That with all these grants, we have indirects, right? This is meant to cover the cost of things like storage for our records, which we're doing to maintain our grants, right? Like we're fine on that. Like we should be afraid to spend money on stupid things, but like maintaining our records and archives is not a stupid thing. That's a necessary thing. And so we shouldn't be afraid to spend a couple $100 on that. That just when we're talking about spending money, think about it that way.
Jen? I'm sorry. Was it Jen? And then Margaret?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Margaret.
So I just want to point out, if we're almost reaching our limit now, that's only 15 gigabytes, according to because I pulled up the pricing as well. So 15 gigs is free. And then after that, it goes to 100 gigs. I mean, which is $20 a year.
Oh,
And
that's
we've been
cheap.
using Google Docs for what, 2 years now?
No, it's been a while.
That's
I
very affordable.
Yeah, and we started using them when Ian became actually before that, when we started doing the COVID campaign is when we started using Google Docs. Like I know there's stuff in there about hand sanitizer and stations and all of that. And
Well, the
so
file goes back further. So
Andrew,
personally-
how many gigs do you think we need?
We need to see how much data we actually have in our total archive.
I'll just chime in. I'll say, like, even if we spent $200 a year on this, that, like, from my point of view, it's not a big deal. We have $200 a year for storage if we need 5 terabytes, right? Like what I'm saying is that, and I'm telling you, because I asked my wife about this. She runs the state's historic newspaper preservation program. She's a librarian at the U of O, right? She's an expert. We should not be maintaining this on hard drives, right? Like if Den's house burned down, I hope it doesn't. I'm not saying it should, but I just like if you have hard drives at your house, they're going to burn down. If we get 3 hard drives and they go to each of our houses, right? Like we could get robbed. Like we are not the experts in this. We shouldn't be doing document preservation. It should go into a place like there's the issue of who has access to that. We can control that. That's a controllable thing. But like we should not be maintaining our own records. We are not experts in that. Let's just buy the digital storage. It's the cheapest thing we're going to buy this year.
And $200.
I make a motion that we spend the $200 and buy the,
We don't even need to do that. Let's just start with $20. Let's just start with $20.
We don't even need to vote on it because it says that we could spend up to 200. But honestly, I'm saying if we're gonna spend let's just spend the $200 so the next future board is not gonna, it'll be
May I-
okay for a while.
May I
Go ahead.
share my screen and we can look at which one we want?
Yeah, totally.
Let's see if I can bring it over.
You can do it.
There we go. I'm gonna make it big. Sorry, guys, give me a second. This is when my computer likes to do weird stuff.
And just note that I think I might have changed, because a while ago, Doriandra and myself had, not Doriandra, excuse me, Dre and myself had went back and got because we weren't using our nonprofit status, so we might even fall under this one too. Does
and
that make
there's
sense?
there's
So this-
also an upgrade to Google One that gives us extra benefits.
So, yes, so this is the 200 gigabytes with Google One, and it gives you extra benefits. And you can see with each, these are all with Google One.
Mm.
They give you, you've got your workspace if you're doing $100 a year for 2 terabytes. And I did yearly instead of monthly, but I could switch it to monthly. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Is this one's yearly, right?
Do we have more than 200 gigabytes of data? Isn't that the $30 a year tier?
Right now
can't
we have
see-
less than 15.
Yeah, so that's overkill almost. I mean, 100 gigabytes might be all we need, actually.
I'm inclined to agree. I think there's also a question about our historic records. Dan, it sounds like you might have some records from back in the day. I know Dan has a ton of paper records that we should consider how we want to get that digitized at some point, because paper goes, I doubt that it's being stored properly. Like for posteriori, it's not in a climate controlled space with low humidity at all times at like 35 degrees or whatever you're supposed to do. I don't know. But right, if we're serious about our records, right? But let's start with 100. And then if we need 200, Google will let us upgrade in like 30 seconds. So I would propose we just start with the smallest upgrade. Oh, actually, it says we're on a 100 gigabyte plan already.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well then go to 200.
I second your motion, Andrew, if that was a motion.
Yeah, I'll motion. Let's upgrade to
Wait, before you
200.
do, before you
gigabyte.
do that, can you take the screen off so I could see everybody? Thank you, sorry. Okay,
Let's just keep it simple.
and you motion to 200 gigabytes?
But according to you, we actually don't even need to. It's like an administrative expense. So
It
I would
really
recommend
is.
let's not even motion. I think like
Let's just.
somebody
agree.
shake their head if you really don't think we should spend $30. Otherwise, Dilenia and I are just gonna go do it. Okay, it looks like consensus is we should buy storage. We're good.
And we're doing the 200, right? 200 gigabytes, I mean. Got it. All right, so anybody else have anything about the website itself? Hands up. I see some hands up. Dennis?
I have a question about it. What is the cost of that website per year? And what kind of usage does it actually get? Is it a forum for community members to discuss or to go and see events and other things? I mean, can we look at the statistics? Maybe, Google Stats will tell us what kind of traffic there is and from where it's coming and all of that. And I mean, how much does that cost and what usage are we really getting out of it? That's my question.
Me personally, I'm getting use out of it because I go to it a lot, like to pull up these meetings and stuff like that. But realistically, up till now, I couldn't tell you.
But what's the
Thea,
cost of
where's
that?
the,
What does it
Thea?
cost for that website?
Oh, the cost of the website?
Yeah.
I don't know right now, right off the top of my head. I'd have to.
I was going to say that I suggested to Andrew in an email, he asked me how we might come up with some budget money to fund the organization ongoingly. And I was advising that we try and reduce costs. And so I have a couple of websites that are through ISPs that will give me nonprofit rates. So, my ISP gives me a $5 a month rate for. And I believe my website is hosted for free by the company that I register my domain name with. So there are ways that nonprofits can get free or nearly free web hosting.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that. But I'm not quite sure how much we were told it was going to be free, and then it turned out to have a cost, but I really don't remember at the top of my head. I'm not sure if it was Margaret or Gail first.
Margaret.
I just want to say that technically speaking, the website is not completed. It hasn't really been launched yet. So we don't have any real stats. We don't really know what kind of traction it's going to get because we're still working on making it a workable space, but we have spent thousands of dollars of grant money on it. So to just say we're not going to, it would not be a wise move to just disregard the investment that we've already made.
What we really need is people working on it. I know that the people who are trying to work on it have been, they've been stretched pretty thin. So having another helping hand wouldn't hurt. That's for sure. Gail, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the website is extremely helpful for some of the subcommittees, DubCat in particular. We send people to the website so that they can find out how to come to our meetings. The website is the place where people can learn about our different committees. It may not be fully operational yet, but I feel like it's very operational in a lot of ways. No, it's not up to date, and I'd like to see that happen. But as far as functionality goes on a website, it's pretty darn good. If you would like to see a different website to compare it with, go to the Oregon Country Fair family website, not the one for the public, but the one for the actual board, and you will immediately see that our website is pretty darn good. I love those guys, but they're struggling there. So as Margaret said, we did invest a lot of money in hiring a company to do this job for us. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but I know that part of that was to research how to find hosting that would be affordable, that would take advantage of our 503c discount options, whatever those are. And that was a lot of what we contracted to have done on our behalf. So maybe we just need to do some more follow-up and maybe Thea has some answers about that.
Go ahead, Thea.
So Marcus and I are going to meet on Monday. I'm going to look through the stuff this weekend to figure out what's been updated and not updated. We need to add some businesses on there. We need all the board members' pictures on there and updated. I am told that Emma's put those in the Google file that we have, so I want to start looking at that. And so I'm making notes as you guys are talking about what you want to see. I would like to see, I have the website up on my other monitor right now. I would like it to be more user friendly so that because right now we have tabs of home, about, meet the neighborhood, and resources on there. And I would like to see that broken down a little bit more so that when it's a pull down tab, people know what those resources are, or if it's talking about the businesses, to get it more user friendly. And then get some stats running so we can start pushing some stuff on there, and have an event page so it gets changed once a month if possible.
What happened to Saoirse? What wasn't Saoirse on the committee?
She's too busy.
Okay.
And then the other piece I was going to ask about was, as far as the businesses, we're still getting verification from the city, but we're pretty much at 432 businesses here. It's a really nice idea to put the businesses with their, logos and their pictures and all that stuff. But honestly, to me, it looks really frumpy, and it should read more like kind of like a yellow pages. Like if you're looking for a dispensary, going green. If you're looking for auto, Walt and Jerry's and Walt's, for me, it just feels very clunky to have to I don't know. Go ahead, Dennis.
It needs more organization.
So wasn't the company that I mean, you guys are paying them like, what was it, $80,000? It's a phenomenal amount of money.
It was 20,000, which
20,
was still,
okay, 20,000.
yeah, it's still.
I was shocked because I'm not sure that you got value for money, because it doesn't seem like, here's my question. Were they hired to populate the website, for instance, to do the resource page, to populate the businesses and do all of the cross-referencing and whatnot that you really need to populate those pages? Wasn't that what they were hired to do?
It is, but there was also information that we had to provide. And at the time, it has changed hands so many times, because at first I believe it was Angie who was doing it, and then Ian took it on, and then I had it for maybe 3 minutes and had to pass it off. So it's really trying to find somebody who can stay on it with them. That's our big problem.
Isn't it a matter of maybe just giving them directives, like say, okay, this is what we want you guys to do. Go do a roster of all the WCC businesses, boom, do it. Is it that kind of a thing, or are we supposed to come up with the actual info and then pass it along to them? Seems like for that amount of money, they should be doing the footwork.
Claire, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I had a recent communication with them, just kind of asking so what's the deal? How do we get our notes on the website? And they said well, we haven't heard anything from you guys. Tell us, give us the PDFs, tell us what to do. So I think they're, an adept organization. We just need to provide them with fodder to do their job.
That's exactly correct. No one has followed through.
But can you not give them a directive? I mean, we've hired
Someone can.
Yeah.
Well, could you just say, maybe Dilenia could contact whoever's in charge, contact them and say, hey, look, we'd like you to populate our business directory. And they do the work, and they do that. But that's something that we wouldn't have to give them the info. They could find that in a number of ways.
What do you think?
We actually have the information, right, Jen? For the business addresses anyway.
Yes, we do. The thing is that there's been no follow through, because we know we have to provide information. So I think we need to revisit that and wake it up.
And then my other question to that is it legal to put the companies on our website without their permission?
That's a good question.
Because then do we have to individually, every company I come in contact with, I let them know hey, we can put you on the page. But I don't know if, permission needs to be made.
I don't think it does, because if you just do a Google search for, pizza parlors near you, you will get every single one of them in the community. And I'm pretty sure Google didn't contact every one of them to ask permission if they could be listed.
That's a good point.
And
Gail,
they
did
probably
you have
wouldn't
something?
mind either.
Gail?
Yeah, we are way behind. We're about 10 minutes behind on our agenda now, and we should have moved on to our next item 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to say we need to wrap this up, please.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And then Jen, e-news discussion, it kind of goes in that same sync.
The e-news, okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking how, if there was anybody that had any knowledge in how to develop e-news, because that is one of the ways that many people will read surveys, will read things that we send out. I was also told that because the younger generation, the millennials, I guess, they use, what is it called? I don't even know. That's
Social media.
Instagram, and they use, yes, social media, thank you. And that's something I'm not trained in. But so eventually I think it's going to involve our sending out some kind of a mailer to ask the questions that we need for contact email information. And right now I'm also on waiting on a response from the city to confirm that our residential count is the same, but also includes our business count. And there's a difference in numbers. We have a higher number, and that's being, looked at right now. But I'm trying to get whatever communications that people use. I guess older people like me wouldn't know as much as a younger person when it comes to quick communication. Does anyone
Claire?
have any ideas? Thank you.
Claire?
I'm not volunteering to help with this or do this. However, I do have knowledge about it, and I can point someone in the right direction. MailChimp is an excellent e-newsletter thing. Sorry, my mind is not what it was 2 hours ago. Yeah, so it's a thing that you can buy. It's a subscription. MailChimp is awesome because it also hooks up to social media. So the nonprofit that I work for uses MailChimp, and every time we send out a MailChimp e-newsletter, we also have a blast of that same newsletter that goes out to our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter. And I think maybe one more social media. I agree that we need to move in that direction. However, putting together a newsletter is a pretty big thing. And if there's any extra money that could go towards that, that would be super helpful, because a volunteer is not a promise that something will get done. And if we do want to have a newsletter, it can't be done half, you know what. I don't want to swear on a recording.
All right.
It needs to be consistent. And so I could definitely point interested parties in the right direction, but it is quite a bit of work. We also would have to build up our brand. There's some work that goes into the HTML realm, which goes into coding and finding a consistent style that we would want to use for, colors. And I think we do have like consistent colors that were put together for a package. I don't know if that was Brent and Joe that did that or another organization, but yeah, MailChimp would be my recommendation.
All right, so
I've heard that from other NHAs as well.
let's move on because we are quite behind. Gail?
Yeah, I see that Thea had her hand up. Do we have one final comment from her before we move on?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
I was just going to say MailChimp is super easy. I use it for my husband's getting his music out, and the city pays for mailers, so we might be able to get them to pay for a MailChimp subscription.
And just to let everybody else know, we need to, Jen is also working on the reason for the numbers is to make sure that we're also getting the funding that we're supposed to be getting for the newsletter to begin with. All right, So moving on to Gail.
Thank you. I'm going to just say that I've had several conversations with individuals in addition to Claire's most excellent online edits in our email chain. Thank you very much for polishing my edges. As you may have noticed, I got a little spicy as I did the research for this letter because the injustice of it is really unfortunate. Evidently, there is plenty of space for minors to attend bars and brew pubs and taverns and shows, except not at Old Nick's. So I have talked about this with several other board members, and I would like to suggest that there be one further edit done to this letter, which would be in the second paragraph. I would say to remove everything except the actual recognition of the hours and the allowances for minors, only because we certainly would not want to trigger some sort of investigation on any of our neighboring businesses because the OLCC person who reads the letter has a bee in their bonnet about any of these things. When I wrote the letter in the first place, it seemed to me like this was excellent evidence in support of them doing it because I was trying to think what on earth could their objections be? Perhaps alcohol, well, clearly not that. Perhaps shows, clearly not that. Perhaps brewing on premises, clearly not that. So that was why I worded it the way it was. I did. So I would like to suggest, and I'm going to read this real quickly, and then Claire, I see your hand up, and I'm going to turn it to you, and we can have a brief discussion. It's going to say an informal examination of nearby and similar restaurant bar establishments reveals that other venues have been granted this extension already. For example, Izakai Meiji allows minors until 10 p.m. Nelson's in the Wit allows minors until 9:30 p.m. and Wheel, a pizza pub, has no restrictions on minors who are welcome until they close at 10 p.m. So that would be the only change other than the changes that Claire suggested that I would suggest to this letter. And so now I will open it up to discussion, starting with Claire.
I was just going to say, Gail, when I first read through the letter, that's I think one of my first edits, or I don't know, one of my edits down the line was taking out some of the spiciness. Because we wouldn't want, like you said, like an investigation. So I agree. Your sense there is a good one that we should just keep it to, the hours. So I agree with that change.
Dennis?
Gail, is there any understanding of why Old Nick's doesn't have this already? And were you able to ferret out any reasons why they are not allowed?
That is an excellent question, Den. I called every single phone number on the OLCC website, whether it was for Lane County or the state or really anywhere at all, and got 0 answers at any number. I did at one point get a recording that said, you should probably send us an email. We don't answer the phone. I was unable to get that question answered because I think it's a legitimate question and it is something that I wanted to talk to them about before I sent the letter. The only other venue around the neighborhood that has a minor restriction at 8 o'clock is Sam Bonds. My understanding is they want an 8 o'clock limit on minors because they want the littles to leave, and they've never asked for an extension that I'm aware of. Now, perhaps there's some history there that someone else is aware of that I'm not. But at this point, it looks like all of the nearby businesses that want minor extended hours have received them, except Old Nick's, and I can only imagine it has something to do with their kind of goth, as I don't know, je ne sais quoi. Their aesthetic is sort of dark and I mean they're named Old Nick's for goodness sakes, which is as we all know, a synonym for Lucifer. So I feel like maybe somebody's sensibilities are feeling prickled. It's really the only thing I can imagine, which is why I think if our letter is very factually based and very clear and points out the injustice of this with a little less spice than my original draft, I hope it will be helpful.
Gail, do I understand that they applied, but they were denied?
They have applied multiple times and been denied multiple times. And that is why they came to the board to ask us to support. They were not going to do it initially. And that's why I have the line in there about the fact that the WCC doesn't generally engage in this sort of conversation because mostly we don't need to because our neighborhood takes care of itself. But this is weird and egregious and strange and seems to be specifically pointed at them, and that doesn't seem fair.
Derek has had his hand up.
I was just going to say, Derek, do you have something to
Thank you.
contribute,
And
please?
if I missed this being covered, I apologize. Did we get Nelson's approval and Isaac Meji's approval to use their name in the letter?
We did not, but all of the information in that letter was taken from their website, and so it is publicly available information, and it's just about their hours and their minor allowed hours, which would be because we're going to take out the other language, even though I literally took it word for word from their own websites.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier about not wanting to get an investigation for some other places, if there's some finger pointing to another place, I just wanted to know if it was, I would just be cautious about using another business that's in the WIT's name on something that could raise a red flag if it maybe it's not legal there, who knows?
Well, oh no, it is. They're all approved. They all have waivers that allow minors to a certain hour. All of their waivers are for hours that are later than Old Nick's. I don't really know how to approach sending a letter to the OLCC that doesn't have some sort of factual basis for why we would ask them to listen to us on their behalf. If you have a suggestion about how you think we should approach asking them to do it that wouldn't point out that they've already given allowances to 3 other restaurants, I'm open to hearing it. I do see that Claire's hand is up. So Claire, please. weigh in.
Just one more quick thing is that I don't know if this would help. I mean, I don't know, it might help the argument, but like, you know, Old Nick's can still have a insane metal show that they don't want little kids to be moshed around in a mosh pit at, and then have that metal show be 21 plus. So, you know, it's at their discretion as a professional business wanting to keep their good standing in the community. They should be trusted, something along the lines of like, you know, having events.
To use good sense.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, I mean, because Blair Alley is another one that came to mind, that there's no minors after 9 o'clock there.
Yeah, but they have all the way till 9.
Yeah, but they have all the way till 9. And yeah, just another thing that popped into mind. I don't know if it's extraneous, but yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I should include Blair Alley. What do you think?
Yeah.
I see Margaret's hands up. Margaret, you're muted, dear.
So I know that Nelson's has had 21 and over shows where they didn't let people in, and it was before the whatever their time is that they have listed there, but they say 21 and over only, so they turn people away at the door. So it is at their discretion.
Gail?
Dilenia, go ahead, and then Den, you'll be next.
Yeah, I'm kind of still concerned the same way like Derek about using any names from the WIT. It would, you know, like pointing that there are other family-friendly places I like, but stating any name if there are any, because I do work with the OLCC, and they are the type that they're not going to, they're just going to check on the other 2. They won't. It's a finger pointing thing. I know. You know. Go ahead, Jen. I don't know.
I was just thinking that maybe if you approached it by not mentioning any other businesses, but saying that there are a plethora of other businesses in the community that have this, and we would like to know your exact reason for denying Old Nick's the same facility, and see if you can get a reason out of them. If they can't really give you a reason, then they'll probably fold.
I wonder, though, if we have any standing to ask for a reason, because the truth is that this is really outside of our general behavior. We support our local businesses in sort of a big amorphous kind of way, but supporting specific businesses is a little dicey with our 503c status. So we generally in the past have not gone to bat for particular businesses, except that this does seem really egregious, and they did come to us as their neighborhood representatives, not as a 503c, but as a neighborhood group, and said, hey, can you say something on our behalf? Now, Emily did reach out to me and say, hey, you know, this means a lot to me, and even if they don't change their minds, we're really glad that you guys support us. So that's good to know. I mean, we need to show our businesses that we support them. It will be a much softer letter if examples in it of actual businesses in our neighborhood that have this allowance already. And I wonder if it wouldn't just send somebody on a website search the same way I did, and then they would find out exactly the same things I found out. But I will defer to the board's judgment on this. If people would like me to remove specific mentions of neighborhood restaurants from the letter and then send another draft, I'd be happy to do that. And this is something that we could vote on via email if we don't want to spend any more time on it tonight. I see that Thea's hand is up and then Margaret's hand.
So Dennis might be able to help me remember, but many, many, many years ago, I think it was Thinking Tree that came to us and asked for us to say it was okay to have another alcohol place in our neighborhood. And I think Hop Valley did the same thing. They came to our board, they came to our general meetings and asked for us to support them coming into the neighborhood and
Well,
shared how they would be good neighbors. Is that correct, Dennis? Do I remember
Well,
correctly?
we had a standing policy that we would request any new alcohol business, pub, restaurant, particularly pubs, to come to a WCC meeting and introduce themselves and tell us what their interests were, what kind of shows they were going to have, what kind of noise they were going to make, what kind of patronage they were expecting, what was the size of their clientele, because we had parking concerns. So we had every single one of the new businesses come in and sit down and chat with us so that the expectations that we had as a community were understood by them. So I think it's reasonable, you know, where you're going with this, Gail.
Thank you. Margaret, you had a comment, and then Andrew.
So I'll be happy to reach out. I know Nelson and I know almost all the local restaurants and brew pubs, and I would be more than happy to go in and talk to them and ask their permission if we use their name and use their hours, if that makes people more comfortable, because I agree with you, Gail. We do need some kind of substance to the letter. So
Okay.
if people are comfortable with that, I'll work on that with Gail and I'll go talk to Nelson. Oakshire's the same way. They're open till 10 and you can have kids in there till 10.
I think that's a great idea. Let's hear from Andrew and then Jennifer, and then I'll try to do a little summary and see if we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I was just gonna motion to approve sending the letter. And if Margaret can check with the businesses listed, I guess let's go with like order preference here is if businesses agree in the next week or whatever that we can use their name on the letter, then their name stays. And if it doesn't, we'll just say many businesses or businesses we're aware of in the neighborhood. Because I do share Derek's concerns. A lot of government agencies are complaint driven. Like Lane County will not do anything about illegal buildings on your, unpermitted buildings on your property unless your neighbors complain. And then it's a problem. So don't want to set that up. Thanks for bringing that up, Derek. So motion was to send the letter as written, assuming that the businesses sign off on it in some reasonable time frame. And if not, we'll just strip their names out and send the letter without their names.
Thank you, Andrew. Jennifer, you had input, and then I see Delinia's hand up. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. I think that if they're putting it on their website, they want this. This doesn't seem like it could get any clearer than that. It's okay to use this information if they are using it.
Well, that was my logic taking it off the website, but now that I hear that there may be some sort of punitive attitude at the OLCC, and I don't mean to impugn them, we're on recording, so I'm just saying that I'm getting the feeling that we wouldn't want to set up a situation where someone might get overly zealous and decide to pursue an innocent business just going about its business.
Yeah, you
That
know
was
what?
repetitive.
You're very right, because it does happen, unfortunately. So
Okay, I see Dilenia, and then Den, you can have one last comment. Margaret, your hand is still up. Is that because you want to speak or because hands are still up? Okay, great. So let's go Dilenia, and then one quick final thought from Den, and then we'll wrap this up.
Actually, I was just gonna second Andrew's motion.
Perfect. Thank you for the second. Den, do you have one final comment?
Yeah, it's that if those businesses are approved, Nelson's and Meiji, if they are approved to have minors up until a certain time and they are following all their rules, and how would it actually trigger any heat from OLCC to mention those businesses because they
It
are
wouldn't.
approved?
I think the concern is because I tried to look up their liquor licenses and maybe I'm just not I can find out that what type of liquor license they have, but all the specific exemptions. I think the concern is that we do not know whether those businesses have permission to do that, and if they are doing something that's gray or
Got it.
potentially even over a line, we don't want to put ourselves in a position to accidentally tell on them.
Got it. Well, maybe if we just ask each of the businesses mentioned in
Yeah.
the letter, if they actually have the approval, and then that's a shoe in,
Yeah.
and that would give the weight to the letter that Gail is seeking.
That's the
I
motion.
think that was the suggestion from Margaret, was that she was going to go and talk to them directly. I will point out that OLCC comes to these organizations or to these businesses regularly to check to make sure that they're following the rules and they're carding people. I mean, I know Dilenia deals with the OLCC a lot because one of the C's is cannabis. So they're in and out of all of these businesses to make sure that they're not serving underage drinkers, that they're not allowing people in past the hours. So I don't think you can fudge it. I'm pretty sure if you are going to have a minor in your establishment, it needs to be during approved hours by the OLCC. And if you break that, then you're risking your liquor license. So I don't think anybody's fudging these things, but I don't know for sure. So I think it's a great idea to have Margaret go and actually ask them, because once again, I'm not an expert. I don't want to presuppose. I just know what I could find with a quick internet search. So the motion with a second from Andrew, seconded by Dilenia, is that we, yes, send the letter after we get confirmation from Margaret that the businesses I cited are okay with being included. In the absence of that permission, I will reword it so that it just says many businesses or something to that effect. And that I will then go ahead and send it. If you trust me to make those changes in a way that sounds good to you, then I'd say let's go ahead and hold a vote. And Jennifer, do you have a comment, or are you voting? Voting. Okay, so let's say everybody in favor, go ahead and raise your hand. And it looks like everybody's in favor. I don't see any abstentions. So, or anybody object? I suppose I should go through all the process. Any objections? Anybody abstaining?
I didn't see anything from iPhone, AKA Marcus.
Marcus, are you abstaining? I'm going to say that's a yes. So we'll put Marcus as an abstention. Otherwise, it looks like the motion passes. Thank you all for your trust in me, and I will do my very best to do us proud. I'll also probably send you a copy just because I do those things.
Thanks, Gail. And then Thea finally had an update for us.
We do have an update. I think Marcus is putting kids to bed. We have park ambassadors for 6 months dedicated for the Whiteaker parks. They are going to work on reminding unhoused that there are resources for them. There are places, there is help for them. They may not be camping in the parks. It is 6 months. It is the rainy season. Maybe starting on Friday, it's the rainy season. I am going to push that they keep them, but we will probably share them with Monroe Park and MLK, which is at 8th and Grant. Because if you noticed the extra campers we've had in the neighborhood for the last week and a half or two over by Jerry and Waltz by the railroad tracks, those people, some of them came from by Chambers and the overpass when they cleared that out. And some of them came from the MLK area right there. And they were moved, but I think they started moving back in this afternoon. And I've already called on that, just so you know. Then the other news, I'm meeting with Chief Skinner on Halloween, and I'm going to take him for a tour around the Whiteaker. I think I'll get dressed up in costume since it is Halloween. And I'm going to have a discussion about his new CSOs, his community service officers. I did just speak with one of the officers, and he said the plan is, and the chief told me this, and the assistant city manager, is that we are going to get community service officers, and I'm sorry, Brad's ill, on bicycles and on foot in our neighborhood. Different modes of transportation, but getting them out of their cars And I think we might also get regular bicycle police. They're starting to get their numbers up. So I think we're going to get, I'm not taking my foot off the gas pedal. I refuse to. And then I did talk to the city today about warming fires. I don't know how many of you are scared to death that we're going to have a fire in our neighborhood with the little mini campfires. Derek had a pretty bad fire next to his business this weekend, and they're out of hand, and warming fires are not allowed. And when you call dispatch and they ask you for the size of the fire, the reason they're asking you for the size of the fire, it is because they need to know how many engines to send. So I've asked the city, if they're not allowing warming fires, how are people supposed to stay warm? So that is an important factor. But Derek, do you want to share what happened with the fire or no?
Like to hear about it, Derek.
Yeah, I've often seen small warming fires right next to the railroad tracks behind the business up against Wild Time Foods, Grizzlies. They don't last long. They're, you know, small enough. They're almost inside the tent sometimes. You see smoke coming out of these tents quite a bit. I didn't think much of it until one of them grew big enough to do smoke damage to the side of Grizzlies. And I started realizing that whenever I was talking to someone at the city about it and they were talking about what size it was, my comment to them was, you know, the fire up in McKinsey a couple of years ago, it started as small as a warming fire as well. And they can get out of control. And I felt like it was time to start, you know, I hate saying complain about these warming fires, but we need to cover ourselves because one of those is going to get out of hand.
Claire, you have a question?
More of a comment. I just want to make sure that, you know, in our efforts to make sure that our neighborhood doesn't burn down, we also think about our unhoused neighbors that are trying to stay alive in freezing temperatures. And so at the same time, you know, having some kind of resource available for, you know, information on where they can get warm safely and legally. And so it's not just, no, you can't do that. That's the end. You need to leave, but providing some kind of assistance, some kind of option for where they can go. So it's not just shutting it down, because I think that's how you can rub a lot of neighborhood advocates the wrong way. And I don't think we want to do that. And I don't think that we want to turn our backs on people who are facing houselessness for one reason or another. Though we also don't want our places to burn down. You know,
Right.
I live here. Yeah.
So Claire, the first thing I send is the housing service officers. So when I reach out, I email the housing service officers and say, we have a group right here and it looks like they need help. So the housing service officers go first, then the neighborhood service officers. We have a small group of people that don't want to go inside. They just don't want to go inside.
Are the
And
housing
so-
service officers, are they through Eugene Police Department?
They are through Eugene Police Department. And they know who wants resources and who don't. And they are now working with the mission, and they're working with some of the advocates very closely to try and team up. It's taken a long time, but they're finally talking to each other, Claire, on how can we get these people resources. So that's the first place we're trying.
I would
but
still love
fires
to
are
have some of these advocacy organizations visit these meetings in the future, but
Yeah, and I would like to talk about that at a future time. We're getting really close on time here about having all our organizations come again. The other thing that's happening is the city is going back to the mission. This is the other update. They're going back to the mission to see how they can expand on housing services and mental health services. I'm sorry, Anand's not, oh, there you are, Anand. They're going to work on some more mental health services, even though it's county, the city's going back. So we're going to have another meeting with them. And then the final thing I had to say is I had an idea for a fundraiser for our community. I've shared it with a few of you. All the brew pubs in our neighborhood do pints for a cause for preschools, for breast cancer, for athletic events. We need to do a pints for a cause for the Whiteaker Community Council, and to ask that Oakshire does it one month, Hot Valley does it another month, Ninkasi does it another month. And we see if we can do some fundraising where it's Pints for a Cause for Whiteaker Community Council. And maybe we take 50% of that money and we put it towards our housing grant, or we come up with a fund that half of it goes to that and half of it goes to our general fund. So I would like to make a motion to pursue or ask your advice to pursue a fundraising for, we need money in our coffer.
I'll second that.
Do we need a motion, Gail? You're the best to know of that. Oh, Gail must be seeing a basketball.
You know, I
score.
love a good motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I see a motion. I see a second. I see Thea dancing. That's very exciting. Yes, I think that I would totally support a motion to get some funds from our neighborhood things. Does anyone have, and Derek says he'll drink to that. We can all go drink to that. Does anybody have any objections? All right, all in favor, hands up. Leave them up so Claire can count.
Want to state the motion clearly again?
The motion is for Thea to pursue a fundraising opportunity with brew pubs in the neighborhood for the Whiteaker Community Council. Looks like we
Oh, yeah.
have 100% yes on that idea. It passes.
Well,
Yeah,
another
you
one
reach
for
out
the-
to me and I'll help you with that one, all right?
All right, and I will work on a letter that I send out like Gail before I approach the pubs.
Really though, reach out to me.
I will.
I'll talk to Jamie and whatnot.
I see Anand
Is
has
there
had his hand up for a
anything-
long time.
Is there
Yeah.
anything that anyone wants me to ask for with the city, EPD, parks? And Emily will be here at our next board meeting to discuss Scobert Gardens. Oh, and the bathroom is being pulled at Scobert Gardens. It has been turned over. It has been lit on fire. It has become a sex den. They are pulling it. The city did come to me today and said, what about the vacant lot that Tacovore owns that we used to have a porta potty on? And it's right there by 7-Eleven and the gas station. And I said, the last time it was there, they lit it on, it was lit on fire. It became a trash den. So if you're gonna put a porta potty there, you have to go talk to Tacovore, because you don't have Brad, Chris, or myself running around telling them they can't do those behaviors. So if anybody knows of a business that wants to allow a porta potty on their place, you can let me know. But I said, we tried that experiment and I think they're all, Bruns was the first to allow us and they were the last to be pulled. They were very generous with that. And it's sad because we need bathrooms. We will be getting a permanent one in Scobert Gardens. I do know that.
Claire? Do you have-
Anand's had his hand
Oh,
up for
sorry,
like 5
Anon, I
minutes.
didn't see you.
Very quickly, very quickly. So just a thing about people who are refusing the resources to go live in communal housing at the Mission or in group campsites or other places. A lot of people, and this has been shown over and over again, the longer that you are living outdoors, the more likely you're going to have PTSD because you have to be constantly on alert. Those people want solid walls and a door they can lock, just like the rest of us. And offering resources short of that is not going to get many of them very interested because they just don't feel safe. That's all I got to say.
And then I had something to add about the porta potty thing. What about the fancy schmancy new bathroom that the downtown park blocks got? And why can't we have one of those?
That is the intention, is to give us a fancy schmancy Portland loo, but they're gonna remodel Scobert Gardens and they're gonna bring that to the community. And I asked, well, can't we put it in temporarily? And so far I've gotten no, but I don't take no for an answer very well. So I'm still pushing. Because we all need a place to go. We're the only country in the world that doesn't acknowledge people have to go to the bathroom, I think. So
I
and
learned
I will tell you, I will
I
tell you
learned
from
the
the,
phone call or the phone number to call when someone goes in front of a business. As I manage a building part-time through my job, and I was met with a surprise on the sidewalk one morning when I showed up, and I learned that there's a number you call and Public Works comes and makes it go away in their own way. And I was just like, you guys don't get paid enough. Whatever you're getting paid to do that, it's not enough.
All right, guys, so we're gonna have to cut it off, otherwise we're in violations. I think as far as future topics, if anybody has anything that they want to
I
add
have one
to
really,
them.
really quick one. In this last 60 seconds, I would like to say, I would love to see the street murals fixed, and I would volunteer to do that. I'm sick of looking at the defacement on the murals. I think it's embarrassing that we haven't made a move to fix those yet. And so I'd volunteer to work with the artist to fix.
That's been a constant conversation with what Dubcat ever since it happened. But yes, please help us. We need help.
Can we have Dubcat present to us next meeting or whenever it makes sense?
I'll get back to you on that. It's 9
Thank
o'clock.
you.
Have a great day, you guys. Thank you, everyone.